Okay, anyway, we'll get cracking and welcome to this evening. I'm going to do something slightly different tonight, and that is I'm going to flick to you guys very quickly, and I want you to have a think about what you want to get out of tonight. Because Duncan and I have been doing quite a bit of work as to the direction of where this is going based on the last couple of calls. We're going to take you through a process tonight, which is very active, but at the same time, I would like to hear from you because, as we said, it's a living leaders lab, which is it's a very organically growing structure. So, what is it that brings you back tonight? What do you want to get out of tonight to make your time commitment here worthwhile? So just pause for a moment, and then when you're ready, put your hand up, and I'll go around the screen. But I'll give you say about 20 seconds or so. Righto. Why are we here tonight?
Excuse me, sweetie.
Yes, madame.
The my friend Cheryl, I just sent her the link. She wants to come on, so she's quickly picking it up on the email if you want to add her. And I'm sorry, I just missed all your beautiful instructions because someone knocked on my door. Sorry.
Don't be sorry at all. You've actually done what I was putting out into the universe, which is grabbed us an extra person for it. So we've got 8. So I'm actually in action right now.
Perfect. So I sent her the email saying, "Hey, have you got this?" And she said, "Did he send me the link?" And I said, "No, but I did." Oh, I don't know, but I did. So now I'm shutting up. Thank you.
Awesome. We're just thinking about why we're here tonight. So what's the objective out of being here? So I'll go around the screen and we'll come back to you. So it gives you a little bit of time to actually have a think about that. So what will make tonight's investment of your energy beneficial for you? So who's going first? Duncan's Fathom note taker can't. Big Simo, over to you.
Jesus, nearly cracked. Mate, tonight I'm thinking we're going to get a game plan and a roadmap to what we're going to do. That'd be great. Thank you.
Epic. Someone else?
I'll go next. For me, it's a bit of guidance and clarity with how to unite our community with within the different objectives that the community all have. So, yeah, to work with each individual community member with their individual objectives, but to unite us together.
Okay, I'll speak. Okay, but I just want to. I'm going to stop on this. Right. I just came out of a meeting with the Mayor of Shepparton. Shepparton is a regional city, population around 69,000, just under 70. Due to grow in the next 5 years to around 90,000. The 19% are within the healthcare industry, predominantly NDIS / government tied related jobs. The next employer is about 8%. So there's a significant drop, and that's agriculture. So, and then you get into construction and other things. So if you then looked at all the industries, in all probability, there's around a 30% government actual employment. I might actually be wrong. That might actually be more. They've been inundated with a suite of multinational immigration programs by the state government. They're in a state of semi-drought, not quite nowhere near what the Western District / Wimmera is like at the moment. They've been hit by the woke stick. You can see that by the 4th flagpole at the council being the rainbow flag, where it's estimated that there's less than 100 homosexuals actually in the community. And I think it's a very, very limited estimate anyway. I think it'd be much more than that, but it doesn't matter. It's just the point of the matter. And it's the indicators. You look for stuff like that and you get indicators in a community because you know where the paradigm is. And you know also, therefore, where the roadblocks will be within unity. So he, like the mayor himself, is an Albanian. You wouldn't know it, but deep Albanian lineage, beautiful Muslim. Yeah, really 38-year-old powerhouse of a young man. go-getter, action taker, family man, calls a fucking shovel, literally. I really liked him. And he's dealing with a lot of issues that before he became mayor, even though he was a councillor, he didn't even know existed. And one of the biggest things, and the First Nation group there at the moment, fractured. All the families are fractured. They've been disconnected from a whole suite of things which have gone on over the course of the history in that particular area, including moving the whole nation north and then bringing it back. So in other words, severing them from their first tongue, first land, which is destruction for their connection. So there's an incredible amount of apathy, but not just apathy, venom on the streets. So go to Teresa's question. How the hell do you deal with a Middle Eastern ethnic group which has just landed that have a substantial drug problem and violence problem? Then the Australian lineage of 4 to 5 over generations that settled there. And some family farms are like been in the family for 150 years, through to First Nation people, through to all these different things. How do you bring it together? And the first thing is to understand values. Because if a lot on the surface, they'll have competing values. But if you understand, like, go back to Islam. Islam, its purest root is Sufism. Christianity, its original roots, Gnosticism. Judaism, its esoteric roots, the Kabbalah. Now, if you look at each one of them, and I just picked 3 out of the 12 major religions of the world, each one of those actually has in their deep esoteric literature the same stuff. It's just been written in a different language. And the essence is in essence is love. So the question with values is interpretation of language which allows for the understanding of the similar values which will be illustrated in a cultural nuance. Does this make sense so far?
So what you're saying is find the common thing to bring everyone together.
The common values that people operate on, that won't bring them together yet.
Yep.
But it will give you a language that then goes, how do we build a narrative, a story of this place, which develops our heritage, so her side of the story, that allows for us to build a platform, a unifying platform for moving forward.
Mm.
And when you touch that, money will not be one of the values. It won't be one of the values. Affluence might be. And thriving might be, and that type of things, that my children have opportunity. Opportunity will often be a value. And what people will do is link that directly to money. That's not directly to money at all. Because an opportunity for a child could be a wealthy business owner looking at the child and going, do you want to come and jump on board? And I'll teach you the ropes and I'll teach you this, that, and the other. And they teach them headset stuff, which then allows them to go on and thrive in their own way and generate their own funds. It's like I've never actually given pocket money to the girls. Sorry, I did for about 2 years, and something wasn't running right with my soul. And I realized what I'm teaching them is to always come to me if they need money. And not only that, to be part of the family unit, I pay you. So what I've taught them from a very young age is how to generate their own sources of income external to the family and utilizing their skills, skills, knowledge, and attributes to actually be able to do that, which included stuff like busking and things like that. So the point of the matter is get first to an understanding of what people stand for that's common. And then the second thing is to go and create a narrative. Now, the thing about this, you've got to do a dance, and this is it's a tightrope dance, because as Henry Ford said, if I had have asked the people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. But the second thing to that is the people, like, there's a difference between buy-in and ownership. And we spent a bit of time with this in the leadership program, because if someone has to buy in, you've got to get them to buy in. And there's a whole suite of steps that have to happen to that. And then they will take ownership. But if you can get them to own at the start, it becomes theirs and they self-generate. Because otherwise what leaders have to do is they have to provide the energy.
Mm.
And if you provide the energy, and we had a little bit of chat about this, didn't we? If you provide all the energy, that's when we get burnout within the community leader. So it's not just about delegation. Delegation is an aspect of leadership, and there's an art to delegation. But one of the key bigger concepts is to understand from the get-go, if you can get people to own it, then what happens is you get, you don't just get buy-in, you get their energy taking ownership. But not the place I learned this was when I was a young lieutenant. I was having to tell people to go into a house where they might not come out of. And I've worked out really quickly, if you ask them, what do you reckon about the plan up front, and they buy into helping you create the plan, there's a lot less kickback. And so that started to become a modus operandi as a young lieutenant. And any time that I stepped away from that modus operandi, I had friction. It doesn't mean to say that at times a leader needs to go like this, do that. But that's a very discerning, you use that with a lot of discernment. Does that help?
Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I have actually seen that within the community myself. It can start with delegation to a point, but then I think even at the point I'm at with some of the people in the community, I started with a delegation. They offered their services, but now they're actually branching off onto that as well with their own ownership and their own confidence, and then it grows from there. So and even to the point now where the next community meeting we're having, I'm actually asking, what do you want to see at that meeting? Not that I'm running that meeting.
Yeah. So people, like, one of the things I was in conference with yesterday that came up quite quickly is trust and control. So the opposite of trust is control. The more a person doesn't trust, the more they need to control. The more they don't need to control, the more they actually have natural trust and build. Now, when I do values work with people, some of you have done this with me, we go into the shadow of the value. So trust actually has a shadow. But we also go into the reflection of the antithesis, the pole. And the antithesis of trust is control. The pole is control. But what's the reflection? What is, if the universal divine is constantly putting me in situations where there will always be a glorified purpose for it. And when I say glorified, I'm speaking in bringing glory to it. In other words, pure power, truth, etc. That what would be the best possible outcome for me to be stuck in this control thing? What's it really trying to show me? Control is asking you, where is your structure and form for the flow? Because if you don't have structure and form, then the flow will just go just all over the place. Just look at the Channel Country coming down from the Georgina and Diamantina rivers and then hitting, Lake Eyre and just going everywhere. Yep. That's because the two rivers provided the structure and flow to get it to that place to where it didn't need it anymore, and it's just gone out into the basin. Yeah. But the water wouldn't get from the north to the basin without the rivers. And that's the structure and control that nature naturally needed to actually put the water where it needs it. So when we're doing this, we go, right, what structure and control do we need at a community level so that everyone can go off and do their own thing, but at the same time, we know we're all going towards a common goal. And so that's getting them to own the vision. But then at the second stage is structure, which is every meeting they have, just before they splinter off and do their own thing, we just get buy-in to go, let's remember the vision. So every meeting they have within their thing, they go, how does this fit to the vision? So you teach them a process to utilize and how to make the actual vision remain forefront. But then with that, you need to also have the feedback loops for everyone, so that the vision starts to organically grow and develop. Otherwise, it goes stale. Does this make sense? Awesome.
But James, before that, I think it's about helping them to connect with their heart and be in the flow. So they're all in that unified field.
Totally.
Did you guys talk about that last one?
Totally. What we're going to do tonight, I'm going to show you exactly what you've just mentioned, and do it from two angles. Though we won't do it first, and then we will do it, and just see what actually happens. Yep. Because some people won't have that knowledge that you do, earlier, and that's actually really pivotal. Thanks very much for that. Someone else, what's your objective?
My objective was just to get to know people that are here tonight in the team, and also just to understand what I bring to the table and how it fits in with everyone else. And yeah.
Epicness.
Yeah.
Epicness. Thanks for sharing. Someone else.
What come up for me was direction. Just a bit of direction, and the other one is that I sort of come up was faith that this will work. Yeah, I'm probably like, it's a big thing what you're proposing here. It's huge, and yeah, it's just to have that faith that, hey, this is a really good thing. Well, not it is a really good thing, but the faith that it's actually going to work. That's the thing that come up for me.
Epic. Thanks for sharing that, man. Someone else.
My thing is about dealing with my own internal feelings of division or segregation, or sort of post-COVID years feeling of alienation from a lot of my community.
It's an absolute massive one. It's really it's untold, and realistically, it won't be known for many years. And I don't know if it ever will be known because of the way of measuring it, but the impact that period has had on, well, let's say the Western world, because a lot of other people just didn't give a rat's ass about it, but particularly Australia and our level of community, really, really fascinating. Yep. Awesome. Anyone else before we quickly move on?
I was going to say that I would like to internally develop confidence that what I contribute will be of value. And the distillation from what seems incredibly overwhelming, how to bring it down to tangible can make a difference actions. And while there are so many things in need of bringing harmony, bringing unity to, I loved your description to Reza. So in a way, it was almost my answer, that it is values. It's very different to common ground. But when you described values, I could feel internally, wow, that even makes sense how you would speak to someone that has a different culture. Of course, the value is in supporting the next generation, kind of thing.
It's interesting you say that, because an interesting conversation I had with an Iraqi mayor one day when I said, listen, I'm not the solution. My first meeting with him, I was the military commander of the province, and so I was meeting and greeting all these I suppose bigwigs within the province, and he had a 66,000 township on the Euphrates River. It bridged the Euphrates, and I said, listen, I'm not the solution here, obviously. What is? And he looked me in the eyes and he said, we need to forget a generation. I'm going, what? This guy was a primary teacher. He had to flee for 10 years to Jordan because Saddam wanted him. And he looked me in the eyes. He said, "We need to put all our energy into the group below 12 and forget the ones between 12 and 30." And I thought that's a really, really harsh thing to say. But in my 7.5 months in that town, or in that whole area, I started to understand what he had to say. And then I started to come back here, and I realized, after learning a lot more things, the more you focus on the mud, it gives no reason for those in the mud to move, which is one of the reasons why mental health industry is self-perpetuating, because so much of it is done within the mud, which is why we advocate not using that term. We advocate using the term vitality, because then you're actually talking about the journey out and what the journey out looks like. So you then give a person not only a reason to, but you shine a light on where they can go. Because remember, any form of trauma and depression are isolative conditions which the underlying wound is powerlessness. So in sitting in that situation, having connection to someone who has empathy based on experience is really, really powerful. But then also now sits in a place in which you wish to go to and is living proof that you can get there, allows that initial movement within the person's psyche to realize it can happen, because it's a big journey home. So it's a really, and then you then go, right, so that's trauma. But to go from good to great, you got to let go of pretty much everything that got you to good, because that's where it got you. And actually, one of the biggest disruptions in a person's life is going from good to great. And I've actually found going from great to exceptional is even funnier, because it is a subtle but drastic shift in so many paradigms in which, like, I hadn't even picked up, I had still had. So yeah, it's really, really fascinating. Each stage of that incremental soul's journey on the well, incarnation journey on the planet has this death to it, which then allows for the rebirth, for the new to be actually born, which goes back to that point, Teresa. We're not, and it's like Sherry's, like, I laugh at Sherry because, like, her program died pretty quick. Joni, your program died probably even quicker than Sherry's. Duncan, yours did pretty much too. Like, all these programs that were born in the leadership programs, like, I knew they have to go through a birthing, but then a death process fairly, and depending on how quickly the person's moving in their own self-evolution, the project will die really quickly. What was the point of the project? The point of the project is to give them something to actually express out into the bigger world, utilizing all the harmonic leadership concepts, sorry. But the thing is, because they're shifting so quickly, it's like where the genesis of the program happened, and they've shifted, so it has to actually naturally go on the spiral of evolution, which is a death. And you watched more and more people, like, bringing a community to a heart space is an art form when you have varying levels of consciousness, which goes why I offered to come up and speak, because there's a way to do it that is generally done through, and it's only one way, but it's done through personal connection. And so by going into one's own heart at a level of magnitude, you draw everyone else into their own hearts naturally. And that then gives this collegiate feeling of connection. Interestingly, though, because we're going to shift now to doing this stuff, and interestingly, trauma bonding is one of the easiest ways to do it, because of where the collective consciousness currently sits. And it sits lower on the spectrum between a 0 and 1,000. It now sits lower than about 200 as a whole. Okay, between 100 and 150 is a very malleable or manipulatable state, in which that 100 to 150 is where, if a nation's collective consciousness sits, they're generally at a state of war. And that's when all wars have occurred between nations. The collective consciousness of those nations have been sitting at that level, which puts them, shame's about 20, anger's about 180. And it puts them in that bracket. But when you go above 500, which you then go out of the head space into the heart space, becomes the predominant factor in charge of a person's consciousness. then that's when the pain of the present moment no longer is the generator or the impetus of change. It's actually love becomes the stable influence of change. But below 500, especially where head still is predominant, the rule generally is that the pain of the present moment has to exceed any perceived pain that change will bring for a change to be initiated, be that is the individual, family, or community, doesn't matter. So, and that's a fractal of those things, if that makes sense. But you can do it. It's a method to be done, and the more you do it, the more everyone will naturally fall into a process of doing it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to break you into two groups of 4. Why 4? When you go above 4, what happens is, especially when you do it in person, there's a tendency to break down into smaller groups. 4 is yes, it's the square, but it is where a level of people bonding together can actually quickly come into harmony of thought. So there's going to be a couple of guidelines with doing this. What we're going to do is when we break out, I'll give you a couple of moments and you're going to number yourselves 1, 2, 3, 4. It's really easy in person because you're just sitting in a circle. You just go around the circle. But in a virtual breakout group, we need to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So you just sort that out pretty quickly. And then also pick a spokesperson up front. So that person's prepped to know that by the close of the breakout group, they are going to come back and they're actually going to just give us your outcome of your actual group. What we're going to do is a thing called a vortex session. So we're going to drop a question into the group. And when you get that question, you're going to give short answers in reference to that question. In other words, what first comes to mind about what the question I'm dropping in there goes. Now, the questions must be no more than 1 or 2 sentences. 1 or 2 words, even better. First thought, no more than 1 or 2 sentences. Any more than 1 or 2 sentences, you start going to story and explanation. We don't need this for that process, this process. We want to keep it clean and crisp because what actually happens by going round and round and round and round, especially with the movement, you'll actually start going into what's called a vortex, which will spin and your consciousness starts to unify into one. Yeah. And it'd be very interesting to find out where you guys take the groups. Now, we're going to have 2 groups tonight. It doesn't mean to say that both groups are going to go in exactly the same direction. And I hope they don't. But they might, which will always be funny. But if they don't go in the same direction, what that allows us to do is touch the topic from 2 distinctly different angles, but in a detailed way, because the group is doing it in a detailed fashion. If they come together and go along the same line, then obviously that's meant to happen as well. Yeah. But so it doesn't matter the direction of where the group's going, as long as it's still in line with the question. So I'll just run that by you again. We'll break out into groups of 4. You'll have a moment to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and choose a group spokesperson. Once that happens, I'll come over with my voice, the broadcast thing, and I will drop a question into the group. We'll start with person 1. Whatever the first answer to that question is, give it. Be very short, no more than 1 or 2 sentences, or 1 or 2 words, even better. And then go to number 2, number 3, number 4, back to number 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll go round and round and round and round until it either comes to a natural conclusion or I give you a buzz and say, hey, we're going to we're going to stop the breakout room. Yep. And with this first question, I'll probably give you around 7 to 8 minutes to get it going, which should allow you plenty of time. And then if you do have plenty of time, then just help the spokesperson understand exactly what has to confirm what has to be said. We'll come back and the spokesperson will share. And we'll just see what happens from there. Are there any questions about how we're going to do this? No? Awesome. Another bit of guidance. Whatever comes to mind is the thing that's meant to be shared. If it's weird and wacky, giddy up. Epicness. Yeah. If it's not, don't worry about it. It's all good. Just share it anyway. Yeah. So just allow yourself to go down that way. Now, give me a moment and I will find these breakout rooms.
Can I just ask a question?
No.
Where's Duncan? Because he's the only one with a shirt on who doesn't look cold this evening. Everyone else is getting rugs and wrapping up, and you're sitting there with your shirt on, smiling.
I'm in Nambucca Heads at the moment, and
Oh,
yeah, it's actually been 20 odd degrees, but don't forget I've acclimatized to Victoria, so this is a heat wave.
that's right.
Don't
I'm
worry
going to
about
mute you now.
Yeah. Well, Noel's sitting up in Queensland, mate. So, he's very fancily dressed. Righto. So I'll break you out now. You just have to accept going to the room, and then I'll come in and I'll give you instructions over the top by broadcast. Okay, now you're all in the rooms. Allow yourself to just go around with the four and go 1, 2, 3, 4. Just allow yourself to number each other. Jeepers, Sherry, you must be cold over there.
I've got a hot water bottle on my feet, layers of clothing, and wrapped in a blanket. It is freezing, yes.
Jeepers.
Anyway, first world problems, so I'll shut up now.
While we're waiting, community, like this house has got inducted heating. Didn't work the other day, and there was a grinding sound. So I rang the people. 25 years the system has been in the house because the house is 25 years old. And they said, "Oh, you've probably got a big issue. Have it check for gas." I had to check for gas. I thought it was fine. Anyway, I find out later that we've got a gas issue, and that was the issue. So we ring the gas company, and the local guy has been working for the same company for 30 years, and he remembered my father who died 22 years ago. He remembered mum and dad in this place and realized that mum was now a widow on her own, and 7 o'clock at night turns up with a gas truck to put gas in the cylinders. Mate, that's the village mindset we're talking about. And it's there. It's not even about bringing it back. It's just about letting go of the other clutter, which doesn't allow that part to thrive. Beautiful guy, Ian, like almost in his 60s, I think. And yeah, really cool. Okay, we almost got everyone back.
Yeah, everyone's back.
They are too. Look at that. So, over to you, spokespeople. What'd you get?
That'll be me. Excuse me. We found we started probably in the darkness down low, down to just found it hard. We just sort of went on the bottom, just being very dark about, not dark, but even dark, negative, but very low.
Mhm.
And then we moved up to sort of the middle, and we just sort of kept on going up and down, up and down. And as Teresa said, we just couldn't quite go up that extra level into the positivity. We just, we found it hard just to break through that little bit.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great understanding, because what you also at the moment it's also about understanding process as opposed to just what's coming out of the process. You refine a process and the product becomes better. But if you don't get the process right, then you'll never get a refined product.
Yep.
And it's good first start. We're going to do it slightly differently next time, based on something Aaliyah dropped in the conversation, because she's obviously been looking at the notes of the session beforehand. And we'll do it slightly differently to see if we get a different result as well. Over to the other group.
What did you want to hear? You just want to, because they were.
Where did you get to? What came out of that actual discussion?
We just had that flow of words that came, and we just shared the words that flowed.
So is there any themes or patterns to the words that flowed?
They were very empathetic words. Very, I feel like we were in a heart space when we were sharing. There was a lot of empathy for me, which was in taking all the notes. It was they're really core things, getting back to the basis of life and health and well-being. The bit that stands out the most is what came out right at the end, was about resurrection and rebirth. And the connection with the soil was really really great. I felt that was real good analogy of looking after the soil. And if we look after the soil, and new growth can come and we can evolve. And that was beautiful. So we were the words were coming naturally, and they all had really good meaning. But I think at the end, it was just like the essence of what we were all talking about. It was beautiful.
Beautiful. It goes to that point where you come round and round and round, and it becomes refined. Epic. Right. Something I want to mention is one of the reasons why. Put your hand up if you understand resonant fields. Put your hand up if you don't understand resonant fields, was probably the better question. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So, have you ever been in the presence of someone who's told an emotional story and found yourself welling up? Have you ever been in the presence of someone who's quite angry and found yourself all of a sudden getting angry where you weren't before? Matt, why are you nodding your head so profusely on that one? That particular one, yeah? Have you ever heard someone tell a story and believe that they're actually telling your story as well? So what you're doing is you're tuning in, or it's called in training, to a specific frequency or tone that that person is putting out through the story, through their own story. And that causes two people to literally come together. I've had Mick Barney's the most beautiful example. He played about 70 games of first grade NRL. He's a Torres Strait Islander. And after I did the first session of the NRL transition workshop, I walked outside. He didn't say a single word after 3 hours, but he just looked me in the eye in the middle of the foyer of this bloody big hotel in the middle of Sydney. And for 15 minutes, he just told me how I just told his story in there. Now, I'm the white of the Ace of Spades card, and he's the black center. That's the chalk and cheese of the two of us. But because of the way I told my story, it allowed him to actually connect into it. And I've been a beautiful friend of that individual since, and he's an incredible individual. But what's happening is, it's just like if a guitar, an in-tune guitar is in the room with an in-tune piano, and you hit the G key on the piano, then the G string on the actual guitar will start vibrating as well. Okay, it's called resonance. I did this with a bloke and trying to get him to understand. He was living in with his mum at the time. And when I said G string, it all went a bit too kooky for him. And he said, please don't use that string when I'm in my mother's house. So anyway, that an aside, the point is resonance. You'll have to have a mind in the gutter to actually get that joke. And unfortunately, I'm not going to explain it. But the point is that resonance occurs when the frequencies hit, which is why that all occurs to you. So one of the reasons why trauma is so easily bondable is because the amplitude of the energy, i.e. emotion, is very, very high. And so it can then has a big pull. It has the biggest mass, if you want, because a bunch of pendulum clocks all in one room, they will all synchronize. They'll entrain their out of thing into harmony. But the one they come into harmony with is the one with the biggest mass. And because trauma is very powerful, it opens the door to a lot of gravity, and that gravity draws people down. Now, in that process, interestingly enough, studies demonstrated when a natural event or a natural disaster or something traumatic happens to a community, generally mental health goes through the roof. For instance, in the Blitz, the London Blitz, all the psychiatric wards vacated, not just because bombs began dropping, because there was no need for them. People found a purpose through the unity of adversity. So adversity is very much a bond, which when you have adversity as a bonding thing, though, you are strapped into a paradigm of resilience, and resilience becomes your hero. So you must therefore be able to weather the storm or bounce back. So you are constantly in a fight mindset until you go beyond resilience, where you let go of the fight and you no longer see it as an adversary. You reframe your perspective of the situation, and therefore you can actually use it very, very differently. And the same scenario, which would have triggered the crap out of you like 2-3 years beforehand, then becomes an exhilarating experience for you because of the whole shift of your being. No longer needs resilience. Yeah. So that's something to be very aware of with trauma bonding. So I'm going to have another question for you now. And it's going to be something slightly different, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to broadcast over into the rooms initially. You'll keep the same, I hope you can keep the same breakout rooms. If I'll find out very quickly if you can't. 2 ticks. I thought I set it up so we would. Yep, we've still got the same breakout rooms. So what I'm going to do is broadcast a little meditative technique, which is designed to take you into your heart space. In other words, to go into what's called heart coherence, where your mind and your brain, I should say, and your heart start to synchronize, and it sets you up to be in more of what's called a flow state. So that will literally only take us about 30 seconds to go through. And then once we've completed that, I'm going to drop the question on you. You'll start at question with person one, and you'll just go around. Now, again, the note taker, be aware. But again, what I'll do is I'll give you about a minute's closure. And so the note taker just get a theme of what occurred, and then that's what you'll present. And again, if you don't have any answer, just pass, and I'll let the vortex continue round and round. Any questions? None? I'll break you out now. Okay, as you can see, you've still got the same breakout rooms, so you'll have the same numbers. I'll just ask you now to bring your attention to your breath. Just quietly breathing in through your nose. And as you do, hold at the top. And then as you exhale, just allow yourself to release and just relax. Breathing in through the nose, hold slightly at the top, and then just let go. And in this moment, as you breathe and you focus on your breath, just allow yourself to be completely here, completely present, acknowledging all aspects of you. And now shift the breathing as though you're breathing directly into your heart. Hold for a moment, and then let go. Breathe into your heart space. Hold for a moment, and then let go. And now bring to mind someone that you really love, someone that brings magic to your world. See the look in their eye, expression on their face. Feel their touch. Hear their voice. You might even smell their scent. Now just allow yourself to feel the love you have for this person. Let it flow through all the veins of your body, from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. And then if you can, allow yourself to receive the love they have for you in return. And now let that person go, knowing that this feeling comes from within and is there whenever you choose to tune into it. And the question in which you're going to allow yourself to explore is, how do differences dissolve? How do differences dissolve? Okay, spokespeople, where'd you go?
We found ours interesting. It was more of a to resolve, or not so much to resolve, but if you want to have a discussion like that, you have to be very open and grounded to and that's just it. Are you there to resolve it, or are you there to discuss it? It's actually a really open, wide scenario. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that may not be able to come to a conclusion first time round either. It may, yeah, discussion. I think discussion's probably, you know.
Cool. Anyone else from that group want to add?
I felt there was a not so much of a vibration, so it was a more calmer space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then is that then the first breakout session?
Yeah, and I guess it comes even down to the words that are used. You know, they hold vibration too. So it just seemed like a more present state.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks for that feedback. The other group.
Our group, it was a lot lighter in our responses, and openness was the essence of the quality that was coming through. Childlike wonder. And there was a bit of mischievousness at the end, I must say. We won't, but loyalty was a big thing. So we're not going to reveal who the culprit was.
Got no idea looking at your group. Awesome. So did you get any resolution to the question, or was there any themes, patterns in the answers?
I don't think we come up with any resolution. Ours was just about being open and discussion and be willing to accept other things, I suppose. Yeah.
We just knocked the nail on the head there, my brother. No pun intended to a builder by trade, but the point of the matter is that any judgment in that space, what will it do?
I'd kill it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the level of acceptance. Remember now the poll. If you remember the first session, I took you all through this whole thing about the values having and issues having a pole. So judgment's pole is acceptance, and the transcendent function is curiosity. So curiosity goes above the mental plane of judgment, the swinging of the pendulum between judgment and acceptance. Okay, I accept you. Yeah, now I'm back into judgment. I'm accepting you. I'm back into judgment. The way you actually transcend that dance is you actually go into a state of curiosity, which is actually, Leah, what you were talking about before about that lighter mood, openness, etc. That's the state which allows you to get into curiosity. And more often than not, some form of laughter, humor, etc., comes with being in a curious state. as well. They're quite dynamically interlinked. Yeah,
Like
and
it,
that therefore helps.
it's like it gives you wings and it lifts you, so you're
Yeah.
above the heaviness. So it's like you can transcend it.
I thought you were above Red Bull. I didn't think you'd be going down the Red Bull line. You guys are very like you must be so blessed that all my jokes today are really going. That's a dad joke, I know.
I think
You're
so.
dead right. You actually are dead right. And that's the whole point when the mental plane is the pendulum. When you get to the heart mind plane, which the heart coherence little activity that I took you through allows you to naturally enter that space. Now, the when you're doing this in a community setting or a group team setting, like you might not have them all on the same plane to be doing a heart coherence before a meeting. You might, which is epic, but you might not. How do we get there? We actually go into this space of, call it non-judgment. I don't use the term non-judgment, but when that non-judgment is there, it builds trust. Because to be open, one has to have a level of trust that they will still be thinking in the words vulnerable. That's why I never ask a person to be vulnerable, because in the subconscious mind, there's a whole heap of barriers that come up, defensive mechanisms that come up when they hear the word. Now, when you ask a person to be open, the same subconscious defense mechanisms don't come through. Others may, just based on conditioning, but it's a lot easier to work with that word open on a general status. So, a great example would be I had a Marine Corps mate of mine who was doing Commander Staff College, so the promotion course for Lieutenant Colonel with me. And I, I went out we were on a tour and I had a beer with him. And I was really intrigued because he came from the Deep South. And the Deep South were all about, sticking to the Second Amendment and having the right to bear arms. And he was deep Christian as well. And so I've gone, right, yeah, just lay it on me, man. I don't understand this whole thing about the gun debate. And he actually took me way back to 1788 and 1776 and the War of Independence, and then went through American history to explain to me a whole heap of deep understandings that he has about it, which led to the paradigm that he had. And I sat there and I was like, my mind was actually blown, but of the gravity of understanding that he actually demonstrated. Um, and so it came from a place of going, you know, you guys have what, 10,000 deaths a year for gun deaths compared to like Canada has bugger all, Australia has bugger all. Like instead of going in against him, going in with an open question, I actually got a far deeper understanding where he was coming from. And it doesn't mean to say I have to agree with him at all. This is the point. An open discussion doesn't lead to necessarily agreement, it leads to understanding. Yeah. Because when we understand, that's when we can actually go to a place of unity. You don't have to agree first to go to a place. Quite often you get false unity when you go to a point of agreement first. But when you go to a place of understanding, that then can lead to a deeper unity because it goes through a lot of the artificial barriers which have previously been not been talked about. Awesome. Got another one to do. Same groups, same numbers, same process. Different question. I'll break you out. Okay, your question this time, and again, you'll start at number one, is how do we bring the village together? How do we bring the village together? I'll give you about 4 or 5 minutes. When you jump in, mate, you're going into a group that's talking about how do we bring the village together. Okay, don't worry. So how'd we go?
Phenomenal. Really good.
Epic. Well, how about you guys go cab first and give a bit of a rundown on what occurred and any answers to the question.
There's so much here. What we were just talking about was morale and keeping people's morale up. Rotation of tasks, duties, tell good jokes, keep the morale up is a good example. Music and chanting, bonding, sharing meals around a campfire, movement and dance, competition activities to keep everyone focused. So fun was quite a big element in enticing people to come forward, and working with groups of all denominations, open to all backgrounds and beliefs. And Shez had a really good one. That last one, Shez. You're gonna have to come off mute though.
A free for all, no strings attached.
You guys really just touched on one of the key aspects that people ask. How do you bond a community outside bonding with trauma? And you nailed it. Fun. Nailed it. Fun. Fascinating. And the funny thing is, like, every community has different music, different dancing, different bonding experiences. But if they're all shared in certain areas, you can actually, and everyone's open to it, you can actually learn from all the different things. Interestingly, like after the Rwandan massacres back in the 90s in the Rwandan war campaign between the Hutus and the Tutsis, where basically 1 million lives were lost in one day, like a scale that we can't really understand. The UN sent in trauma teams, and they were all based on psychologists, and they brought in ATCO huts, and they got all these people into the ATCO huts, and after a while, the locals just booted them out. They booted them out of the country because they said, "You bring us in here, you get us to tell us over and over and over again, and we're in these huts. It's hot. It's just, where's your dance? Where's your song? Where's your culture?" And so they went back to their own tribal ways. It's really, really quite fascinating if you think about it. Interestingly enough, in as far as the Australians deployment was gone, I have not seen a single Rwandan veteran who is not completely traumatized by the experience. Talks to you about different cultures, doesn't it? Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Someone else who is not.
I think our theme was about being open and accepting. And nobody said this, but the bottom line is basically leave your shit at the door when you walk in. And yeah, be accepting of other people's ideas and without having any precursors of what you want it to be. It was actually, I found it really good. I thought it was just really nice to listen to, the positivity of being in a group, even though we might have ideas of how to be in a group, I suppose, just to be open and listening and to have an open heart. And even though you mightn't agree with them, just still have an open heart. Yeah, I found it really good.
Yeah, awesome. Epic. So open to the group now. How did that experience, that three stage process of going round and round in circles, how did that go for you? What did you take away from that experience?
I'm really curious on how the updated process would have gone with the first question.
You can see the distinct difference, but when you look at it, you can see the difference between the two. Same concept. Sure, you've also got to take into the fact that it's the second time occurring, so there's a level of now familiarity. but at the same time, in dropping people into the process, like into their heart coherence before actually going, then you actually get the process to come from a different level of elevation. You can still do it with the first question if literally someone drops within the room. If someone goes into heart coherence and that's that 4, and they start doing it, then what can actually happen is the rest of the group will follow suit. Thanks for sharing, Joni. Someone else.
It's interesting. The first time we've done it, yeah, we just, like I said, we started low, got to the middle, and we sort of dutted up and down. And yeah, I think it just takes for someone just to step up into that higher, let's call it vibration or happier times, then people are going to follow. It's almost like giving permission for the rest of the group to go, whoa, hey, we can be up here. Let's go there.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's the subtle levels of a leadership influence.
Yeah.
Does actually give that level of permission for people to follow.
Mm.
This is one of the things that most of the crew that have done the programs, I'm telling people some very powerful stuff. So that's why the first stage of harmonic leadership is purify yourself, because then you will, because if you just get this gear, then it's like Dan Andrews is probably one of the smartest politicians in Australia at the time he was in power. And he used some very, very astute techniques. Intention plus action equals outcome. So we used actions. Actions are neutral, generally. Go back to the intention. If you take a different intention, which is a positive, harmonious intention, you use the same techniques, you get a very different outcome. You get a harmonious outcome. So he was an extremely intelligent individual. And you've got a state which is incredibly divided and whatever. However, you could use exactly the same techniques he did, and you could turn the state completely around. Thanks for sharing, Noel. Someone else.
You articulated what I was thinking, that it was that sentence that you've shared in the past about it's for the leader to hold the vision.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was happening, that there was, all of us were, even when recognizing that there would be challenging emotions, it was the healing from, or the process of, or the alchemy of the heavier emotions that just kept it going higher. So it was cool to see in action that, oh yeah, that's what leaders can do, and gather everybody without negating that there will be challenging moments. Keep going on. So thanks.
So welcome. Remember those 3 things I talk about: patience, perseverance, and performance. Like a leader, when they're shifting culture and I shifting the vibration of something, needs a lot of patience, in spades. Because if they're expecting immediate gratification, good luck. Perseverance. Perseverance is the ability to hold the tone over a period of time. And then performance is the ability to hold the appropriate tone and constantly coming back to and sitting in that tone. And if not, refining it more, holding it even higher. Because if you don't have perseverance, you won't make the outcome. But if it simply becomes about getting to the outcome, then the process of the journey actually slides, and your performance might slip because you just say, I just have to get this done to get this done, get this outcome. Well, then the outcome itself will be of a lower frequency, a low vibration. Whereas if you maintain the performance throughout the perseverance, you will get the appropriate and beneficial outcome. So how does this work in a practical term when you've got, say, a group of people in the same room and you're doing that similar technique and you're getting the heat coming in? Because where's that heat coming from? People's
Fear.
Exactly, fear. where's the fear incubating in? What are they expressing? It can be fear, is the emotion that is sitting there that can come out in other forms of emotions, for instance, anger, etc. Dead right. But what are they actually expressing? Their personal,
Powerlessness.
their i.e. wound. Yep. So you're sitting in a group, you're hearing a lot of wounds come forward. Yeah. So that ability to stay focused on the vision, as you said, and the vision is that there is a harmonic answer that unifies, comes together for this question. So just stay focused on that, and I provide that answer from that space. I keep doing that. It goes around in circles. And you watch people, you just keep doing it, and you keep doing it with no expectation of them, no judgment, no recoil. Oh, fuck, they're doing it again. Oh, fuck, how many times do we have to go around and do this? Any of that decreases you, and you actually slide to them. Your sync goes to them because they are now a bigger resonance. Yeah. But you just keep focused on this vision. You watch what actually happens and watch what shifts. And not only that, when you allow yourself to see through what they're saying, you'll actually find that sometimes the real cherubs come out of what they're sharing from the wound. I was doing this once with a visioning exercise when I was getting people to talk about where they want their body and their physical health. And I was listening to, when you say physical health, what do you think? And we're doing a brainstorm session. I had the whiteboard, and it was all this lovey-dovey, beautiful stuff, and I'm looking at this group, and I'm looking at the weight being held, the emotional, emotional wounds being physically manifested. I look at this and say, yeah, cool. Okay, we'll see. And then this one lady just goes, fucking hate it. Oh, boom. And that literally opened up truth to actually come out because they needed to say where they actually were. Go back to those 3 questions I always ask, I instruct the person to ask. Where am I? Where do I want to go? What's my next step? Well, I need to own where I'm at before I can even say where I want to go, let alone know what my next step is. And so when they did this, they went back and I said, take it away. And like she just went bang, 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 bang. And everyone's starting to go, yes, 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 yes. But that actually needed to come out. And in the wind, it was one of the most powerful sessions because of the level of truth that was owned, that they could then get through, break through, see the underlying programs and actually alchemize those programs into what they actually wanted in the end. But without actually doing that, without the truth initially being held, like a space for the truth to be actually held, then there was no chance in getting to any form of harmonic outcome because differences need to burn first. Yeah. They need to go to the fire and they need to dissolve in that before they can coalesce into something which then comes together. And that heat will often be emotion, especially with some cultures. The Arabic culture never ceased to amaze me. I was trying to figure out still, even when I left, like, are they angry with me or are they just saying hello? Because the amount of heat that they generate in their conversations. Are they yelling at each other? And just, no, it's all right. They're just saying hello. That's not hello. Like that's like full blown, argument in Australia. Says, no, he's just saying this and they're saying that and blah, 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 blah. Okay, then. It's probably because it's very hot in the desert, 63 degrees in the shade over there in Iraq. But anyway, so the point of it is that, let that heat, if we don't let that heat out, and this is one of the issues with zero tolerance of anger nowadays. Anger is a beautiful emotion. It is a heating emotion, but it must have appropriate structures to allow it to flow. It's like you don't just muck around with molten iron. That stuff burns and destroys. You've got to have the appropriate vessels holding the molten iron. It then flows into your cast molds, and you've got something which you can really build from. But if you don't have that stuff in place when you're dealing with heated emotion, then it can be really different. And one of the easiest things to do is to sit in a group of that non-acceptance and let it go round and round and round to a unifying question. Awesome. So, Duncan, we had some questions for people, didn't we?
You did indeed.
Do you want to lead or do you want me to?
Jump in the first one, James.
So it actually comes back to one of the objectives, which was, Matt, I believe you were talking about game plan and roadmap. Actually, Shez, I think you're probably the only person who hasn't talked. Like I haven't, or you haven't heard me say what the vision is for what we're doing, and how it starts off. Literally, it can start off with 9 people just coming together. So this is our third coming together. The aim, the vision, is that we are able to help people in communities bring situations to a forum where they can go through a incubation process to be educated, informed, processed, so that they can leave with a action plan we're referring to as a ripple kit to allow that to be put into action. And then from putting it into action, they then come back to the forum with feedback about how that's gone for them, what worked, what didn't, what's epic, and what's not, and then allow the whole model to actually improve and grow. We're calling it a lab, Living Leaders Lab, and it's living because it's ever evolving. I don't use the term grow. Grow consumes. Evolving goes through a whole process that does grow, but also dies and evolves, which goes to Noel's original point, which is where's the direction? Does this have longevity, etc.? This actually has to die. This forum itself will go through a death process. And actually, what I'm aiming to do with this question is to say what actually does need to die in this group for it to now go through the next iteration of birth to get to where we're wanting to go. So I suppose the question for you at the moment is what do you individually need to be able to be part of that group, to be able to be part of that lab?
Need connection to the community so they feel comfortable, or at least know people that can bring those sort of situations to the lab.
And so when you're saying that as well, am I hearing that when you feel connection, you'll be more open to inviting people into the lab? You'll have a better understanding who to invite, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Is that what I'm hearing or not?
Or just knowing people in the community, in groups, and making contact in a way.
Yep, yep. Awesome.
Guess they're going to ask, what is it going to benefit them? So how do we share with them in a light way the essence of what the lab is?
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking of us individually, what we need, or what we may perceive a community may need?
You individually initially, but any answers, I'm writing down all answers that come.
For me, I suppose back to even the answer to the what I was hoping to get out of it is confidence that what I would bring would be of value, that it adds. One of my favorite sayings is that we become greater than the sum of the parts. I'd like to know that what I contribute would be of value, not externally, but I'm having confidence, faith that what I bought was of value.
Okay, so my question directly back at you. Are you okay if I ask you a direct question?
Yep.
Have you felt tonight that you have been of value and your value has been received?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So have you answered your own objective?
I guess the question that I thought to myself to even answer originally when you said what we want individually, my question would have been tangible or intangible, because sometimes I have common sense and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have practicality, sometimes I don't. And my answers in the group, 1, 2, 3, 4 people's,
Come
was
on.
I could
Yeah.
hold, I can hold concept and speak from concept easily, but sometimes I don't have common sense.
So am I hearing that at times you're theoretical and get stuck in the theoretical as opposed to bringing it into the practical?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. How did you go with that tonight?
Weren't we still working in concept though? I didn't necessarily bring anything practical other than good jokes.
There you go. In part, yes.
Okay.
Does this make sense?
Oh, there's an inner voice saying that other people have really good ideas. I'm happy to sit with it.
And ask the question of that inner voice, what is its purest intent in asking the question? So what is it showing us?
Take the time to bring the concept down to practical.
Now, let's face it, what I was doing this time, or correction, not me unilaterally, what Duncan and I were doing this time was bringing the concept of community trauma bonding and dropping it into a suggested topic for us to practice this method. What happens, like, if you guys were to bring a personalized question that you are currently dealing with in your communities or your teams or your organizations into this forum, and we dropped it in to this model, and you then had all these minds spinning to spit out a resolution.
Perfect. That I got that. That makes so much sense. I can see that. Yes. Cool. Then yes, happy.
Now, even if you look at that, if you guys have communities that are currently divided by trauma, and you were to go back over this recording and you were to distill what the essence of what people have actually discussed and given, could you, could you as a proactive leader structure some form of engagement plan? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Especially like firstly, my face lit up, and although I played a bit dumb, I was touched that Aaliyah's group did what it did, but I actually wasn't surprised. Yeah, because it's set up to do that. You guys just allowed yourself. I'm not surprised you guys did. You just allowed yourself to drop into it. So the system, the form is there, and then what you can do now is you literally can drop anything into it. And you can actually do this as a family around a dinner table. When I used to run the Young Warrior Leadership Program, I used to have these family exercises, because we knew one of the things that we subtly wanted to touch was families coming together back around the dinner table, instead of how many families don't actually eat a meal at a dinner table. So what we do is each 2 weeks we would send a family pack out about a specific topic that was touched on the Young Warrior program, that got then a family exercise or discussion group or whatever that would actually happen around the dinner table. And then they would provide feedback about how that actually went. And sometimes the Young Warrior would lead that discussion. Other times it was just an open forum. And it got a lot of great feedback, because people were saying that it was just a natural ability to come together. And even though the objectives were stated, because there was just imagine a little lesson plan type thing. There's a little lesson plan there for them they could easily follow, like this, do that. But if they didn't touch the lesson plan, if they didn't like hit the objective, who gives a rat's ass? Because the truest objective was
Getting them together.
exactly. So by the simple fact that they're sitting at the dinner table, we've already got a big green tick already. Anything else on top of that, that's a plus.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the thing. Firstly, with this little thing. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be the set format for what we're talking about. It's the ability to do what we're talking about is a multi-tiered, multi-leveled thing that when an input of different technologies can allow for an even bigger like output. And we can set systems up in place with groups to actually allow that to happen too. And watch when that actually happens when you educate the technology in the right way. Yeah. So we can use that as a group. But it all comes back to this, is there well, Duncan and I, through our exploration of communities, have established that we believe that there is a need. Part of what this whole thing is to see if communities actually feel there is a need. And if they don't, well, there's no point. But if they do, then there is a point, and we can take steps. Like I said to you guys either last week or the week before, our aim is to touch 100 communities by the end of the year,
Okay.
some way, shape, or form. Touch 100 communities by the end of the year. What does touching a community mean? It means that people from that community have been able to bring the situation into the lab, and that's been able to then take something back to their community which is practical and actionable and something designed to help them get results. Now, the lab doesn't solve the problem. The lab helps them structure a way to go back. The problem's only solved when they're back in their communities. It's not solved in the lab. Got to remember that. And they can go away and they can literally have, the lab could spit out an incredible ecological plan in which is designed to make a prosperous community within the space of 3 years, including all business plans, dynamic stuff. And they could have a step-by-step process. If they don't go back and put it into action, well, they're not going to get anywhere. So this is why in our concept, we're looking at a thing called the foyer. And the foyer is where people come with their situation, and that situation is undressed. In essence, the leaders are also undressed and equipped, because one of the biggest issues that leaders face is they operate from wound, especially community leaders. They operate in the wound. Why? Many different reasons we've previously discussed. But it doesn't help create the new, evolved community, that harmonic community. So there's this undressing process which is required for them to realize that the question they believe they've bought is actually more a situation, because that question is framed in a whole suite of paradigms and other things, nuances, which are community specific. They might have the same question in Horsham as they do in Trunky Creek, in Gosford and beyond, but the situation will be dressed slightly differently because of the different community aspects, the different people, the different cultural nuances, the different stages of community development, resource, all that stuff. That means their situation will be different. So we need to unpack the situation to get the people to the place in which the truest essence of the question can then be looked at, incubated, and the practical action plan can then be delivered and gone back to the community. Does this make sense?
Yep.
But another way to look at it as well with this is that, one of the things that probably comes to mind, and it was sort of touched on a little bit, was the importance of the leader is actually that they're not actually in the trauma as well. They're not in the wound. And so a lot of us will connect in with other people around us as our medicine, to try and draw us out of our wound. But the thing is that we're still in our wound. So the importance is to actually really start to understand the imperative nature of actually really moving beyond. See, we're moving away from language such as we don't use mental health within our space. We use vitality. And
Yep.
the reason for it is that vitality actually now gives you an invitation to expansion. But the big thing it gives you is ownership and accountability. You know, so vitality is ownership and accountability, whereas mental health is I can fob it off to somebody else. And I can use it as an excuse, and I can use it as a mask and an identity. Whereas if we actually look at vitality, vitality now becomes a different process. Now, as moving into the leadership place, leadership is just a halo effect of the knowing of who you are. And so the knowing of who you are is so beautifully important in this equation, and that's why the foyer is such a big thing. The foyer is also for us as individuals. So where James posed the question, what do you guys need? You know, we'll go straight to the community, because part of it in us, and if we actually feel into this, is that if the community is there, then I can heal. All right. What happens if you heal and you step into your community? And healing is return to wholeness, and the wholeness is who you are. And so the idea is to actually so being in this group is actually teaching skills for yourself that you'll be taking away and applying to yourself, either through an osmotic process or an intentional process. But it's actually starting to move you in a direction of that. So it's not actually about going in there and saying, I'm a leader now, do as you're told. It's like the difference between a rebel and a disruptor. All right. A rebel is actually staying in the energy of it needs an adversarial person around them. Whereas a disruptor, it's their presence creates change. It asks the question. So coming back to the question that James put forward, what do you guys need?
I'd like to ask some questions. So I think this is a fantastic tool, and I could really see it working. The one space I struggle with comprehending is how I connect to the community to get them into that space. Because I'll even speak in regards to my husband, and his background is very direct, straight. Even the language I often use, he finds a bit poo-hoo in the fairy in the sky kind of stuff. And then I have to learn a whole new way to put a concept forward without using open your heart or I can't think of all the words now, but how do you then connect with, like in my circumstance is farmers. They're harsh men, they're men. And I guess James, from your background, you'd probably relate to that from your previous employment. It is connecting and finding that pathway to get these people into that space, because I believe once you're into that space and the environment is set to open for it, I think it's a fantastic tool. But how do you get them there?
Two things. Firstly, you get there yourself. You can't get anyone to a place that you're not already at.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. One of my skills is that because I'm very eclectic in background, like growing up on a sheep and cattle farm, etc., but then going into the military and having a lot of different touch points, experiences in different industries, I can speak many different languages. So, and it's not being a chameleon at all, because a chameleon means I'm changing, like I'm acting. No, I just talk their language, but
Adaptable.
Thank you. Beautiful word, adaptable. But the thing is, I'll come back to this point in a minute. My father could not, even though he was an Anglican priest who brought critical incident stress management into the Victorian police back in the 80s and attended all fatal accidents between basically Melbourne and Albury and into the countryside. He established this whole platform for it. And I found all his notes the other day. I had to read through it and I started laughing because, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. There was so many things that we actually do exactly the same, yet, we never talked about it. The thing is, Dad could never help me heal. And if Dad had been around, I would not have healed from post-traumatic stress. Because I would have gone to him. I would have seen him in that hierarchical state. And so I would have gone towards Dad. Dad was still in wound. Dad's soul knew he had to die for me to transcend his place. Now, I've just spoken to you in what some people would call woo-woo language. Like, I could put that in scientific language if I wanted to, talking about varying frequencies, hertz, etc. It doesn't matter. But what I'm just saying is if you want to play first grade, don't go to the third grade's coach. You got to play first grade, you got to go to the first grade coach. And he's the first grade coach for a reason. So I've got to understand, I've got to get myself there, because then I'm going to be attracting the right people. Second point, attract the team. And that is a team of like-minded people who know where you're coming from and resonate with your vision, but can also speak multilingual. And by the virtue of the fact that they're a different person means that they'll be able to, between the two of you, will be speaking at least 2 to 3 different languages. And when I'm speaking languages, I'm not talking,
I know what you mean. I actually was going to invite someone this evening and I stopped myself because it was a safe bet.
But see,
and that to me was like, she thinks like me, she talks like me, and that kind of thing. And I didn't want that. I want to be able to connect to all sorts of people, and I guess my husband's my biggest challenge, really, in the sense that not even a challenge, but I have to learn to express myself in a different manner than I would feel, say, comfortable with.
Or just be you.
Well, I am still being me, and in the sense that I'm still expressing the concepts or the things that I want to put forward, but I'm realizing that my audience isn't understanding it in the way that the words that I'm using that I resonate with.
So again, 2 more points to this. Firstly, they are what you call them, they become. So I'd always used to tell parents, if you call them my little boy, my little girl, they'll never grow up, because they will act as you tell them to. So if you believe that your partner or whatever will always see you through a certain light, you will always not understand you in a certain light, they will always, in your mind, from your perspective, see you in a certain light, not understand you. And therefore, you will behave in your conversational techniques in a way in which will end up creating arguments. And yet you went into the whole discussion saying, I'm not going to create an argument anymore. You're running yourself down a pathway, which is why I come back to the point, start on myself. Bring your like-minded friend in to provide a different point of view, not just a different language. And one of our biggest things will be, especially when something is new, opening it up. Now, I'm not in what do you call it? Marketing stuff. What's the magic and all those things?
Like pyramid sales,
yeah,
whatever.
multi-level marketing. Like it's never really interested in me. But I've seen it from the periphery a lot, and I got involved once or twice, and I had a chuckle because like they go for personal development. Of course, they go for personal development. Buddy, what's that big one that used to be Amway? They do a lot of personal development. Why? Because they're getting a person to stand up there, and the person has to be a certain level of confidence to be able to put forward the stuff. And they'll always go through that thing. You're not a salesperson. Just express, that this is amazing and it's resolved these issues. You don't sell. You give a person an opportunity. They go always down that line. There's actually a lot of truth to everything they're saying. Yes, it can be used in any way. Go back to Dan Andrews' point. Dan Andrews is very strategic in what he said. Understand his strategy and then put beautiful, harmonic, heart-centered stuff into it and use it. So the point here is actually reaching out and getting people in will be one of your biggest obstacles. Sherry's brought shares in today, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Some of you will stop yourself doing it until you get through a threshold. And that threshold is that it is actually worth something, which is why I'm asking all these questions for you. Because I want an answer to that question. Let me rephrase the question. What does this have to give you for you to be willing to go and tell 2 or 3 other people that you actually would really benefit being on your team about it and get their ass here so that they can actually help you do what you're meant to do in your community? Let me reframe that question this way. Does that help?
Oh, most definitely.
Because I'll guarantee at the moment it's not, which is why it needs to die.
Well, I'm like her husband with Sherry and I. I say it as it is, straight down the line.
That's
my
also
husband will just
fine.
say, this is all BS. And then when I explain a concept to him, he'll then get it. But if I use descriptive words, or it's just the way his mind processes things, like, because he comes from a correctives officer background, so it's very directive in his approach to dealing with people, and he obviously he's always in charge too, so therefore he has to comprehend what I'm saying to him and assess that it's not manipulative. So the way I would approach a situation would be different. Like if I come across and said, we need to change our community's heart, and they need to be open, and we need to, make people feel that they're in a space where they could be, speak their truth, and all this kind of stuff. He wouldn't take it on board that way. But if I was to put it in a way where possibly that it's about moving forward in the community, even if we get through the struggles we're currently getting through, but it's to create a better environment, and I'd have to come to him with terms of how we would do that, because it comes back to that you have an issue, what action you're going to take, it needs to be structured, very structured.
Yeah, and a couple of points is, remember your team, like your husband's got a whole heap of emotional baggage coming in from the corrective services. We discussed this. Yep.
Yep.
So the first thing is he firstly part of your team initially? And you got to ask yourself that really calculatedly. Yep.
Yep.
And you got to own it.
He has to be. I think if he wasn't, then it would be very difficult.
I know.
Yep.
But you also got to understand that the two of you will limit each other. And so it comes to,
because not only are we working on the community, but we are working on our connection. I know, I see it.
So the other thing is, then you just realize words. And basically what you're asking for is a platform where everyone's heard in a non-judgmental space. Now, have I talked about any heart-centering woo-woo shit right there? Can that statement actually be used in any forum, be that farmer, mining, educative, academic, political, or a Buddhist sanctuary?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and everyone would know what I'm talking about, yeah?
Yep.
So what I'm hearing are symptoms. A whole heap of symptoms. And if I keep this conversation going, what I'm going to get is a whole heap more symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a cause sitting down here. There's a causal issue sitting down below, in which you're smiling because you're starting to feel it. And that then sprouts all these symptoms. So we just try and chop the head off, but it's just like Hercules and the Hydra. 3 more come up as soon as you chop the head off one. So if I was to ask you what your real issue about stepping up and being a community leader and receiving assistance by people to do that, what is the actual biggest issue?
Oh, sorry, I'm going through all the things that are actually the symptoms.
I know you are.
Yeah.
Pretty, just take a deep breath. And tell me if you don't want to do this tonight. You okay to do this tonight?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So
it's giving myself the space to analyze and work through all the things that I think or believe they are, but really getting down to the causal. So can you say that question again? Sorry.
What's really stopping you stepping up?
Being misunderstood.
I fear being misunderstood because?
Because now I've said it, I actually don't feel that. because I actually don't have a problem with saying what's on my mind. I just, or having to express myself, it's probably not the trust that I don't have the trust in myself with the way I believe I communicate.
If I am misunderstood, I will be.
I guess it's rejected. Yeah.
You watch. It is one of the core wounds of any leader stepping up in a community. Community they want to help will reject them in the first place. And our first step is we've rejected ourselves from even believing that we could possibly do this, which is if we do this as a collective, have a resource far beyond any one person. Duncan and I are playing with an idea at the moment, and I'll throw it at you. It's come into the lab. If you bring wound and constrictive paradigm, will you be effective, and will you get effective results?
No, but I think how far do you go back into ask like how long do you give that time frame to assess all the wounds? The wounds are there. There's wounds forever.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why we teach a very different paradigm about healing. We don't focus on healing, we focus on evolution. Because if you focus on healing, you will forever be finding the wound to heal. Because we focus on evolution, which allows the person to evolve constantly. Because then they get into what's called a process. It's a process-driven paradigm, which then allows the situation to be put in, and there's a natural flow within the psyche that allows it to be into the next evolution. Otherwise, and I know this myself, Kirsty turned to me back in 2012, 13, and like I'd been doing so much work on since I started back in 2008 on working myself. After finding myself where I was with post-traumatic stress, she goes, when are you going to stop believing that you need to, as soon as an issue comes up, put yourself in a stress position and meditate for 3 hours through the pain? That's what I used to do. I used to put myself in stress positions and meditate through the pain. Phenomenal results, like phenomenal states of consciousness come from it. I was addicted to going into the pain. I was addicted to the pain, and I became addicted to meditation. All because of the paradigm where, and also the other thing was self-judgment. You don't understand, Kirsty, because you've never been through post-traumatic stress. That's an excuse to just allow me to stay stuck and dismiss any form of help coming my way. And she had a very good point, and that's when I started to understand this fixation on healing. And in my workshops, I've watched people come workshop after workshop. They've still got the same issues. They're addicted to personal development, and they won't let go of the wound, which is allowing them to go to the personal development in the first place. Because the personal development gives them a community, which becomes a reason for existence. So if a person wants to come on one of my programs for a second time or third time, I'm asking them a couple of questions as to why they're coming, what's their objective, and I've often said no. Joni knows she wanted to continue mentoring at one point, and I said no. I said, if you were to mentor with me, you'll be taking a cheap, easy way out. And I say that. Very, very powerful woman sitting there. Does this make sense?
Completely. Everything that my husband's actually said.
So this point, like to come back into what I was saying is how do we like structure something in which in all probability is outside the lab to allow for people to do what they need to do to then also gain the language of the lab to then come into the lab and actually get the benefit from it. And a thought was, and I'm going to throw this thought at you, is a 4-day residential program with a six-week incubating thing afterwards, which is separate to this, because this can't become a therapeutic space. That's not what it's about. It's about bringing the situation in and allowing for that situation to be churned over, distilled, and broken down, and actually come up with a resolution. But if we always bring the other things here, it's not going to actually help the lab grow. So that's what we were thinking. Thoughts on that? Would that actually be of assistance or not?
So James, is the concept to teach people the process of the lab and then take it back into community and then come back to the lab when they need more resources and support.
But that's where we're thinking at the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, you're actually, because of your background and everything you've been able to do with yourself, you've got a very deep sense of understanding of how people function well already. There's a lot of people that will come with that, and go back to what Teresa's point is. How do we deal with a whole heap of different people that are coming from broad brush backgrounds that are at varying levels of self-awareness? How do we get them all into that space? Because go back to what Chez said originally, which is open, accept, no strings attached, open, accepting. And that's actually one of the premises about the lab. But how do we help them be able to come in and help themselves in that space? So this is the question that we're toying with, and that's why I'm asking you guys all these questions to see, rather than us coming up with this plan and then going square peg round hole, what do you need? What type of stuff can we help you with? Excuse me.
I think the education it is, even on this group, like I've just come in, this is my second time. I missed last week's, and I'm learning on both of them, and that's what I'm here for. So then I can go out and do it in sections that I work in.
Where do you work, Ches?
I just do local community picnic once a month, and I work with all volunteers, and we're not affiliated with anybody.
That's epic.
So
thanks for sharing. Okay, so educative space, yep, get that.
Yep.
Anyone else? I don't want to keep this discussion going. We're already coming up on 2 hours 20 now, so I want to cull the night's discussion. But how can we help you or help people that you need on your team?
Got a passion working with youth, and I feel like you really have to get right in there. And I've been put on the outer for a little while, and it's now I've got to get back in there. So I've got to break through and I believe to take a different approach and teach a couple of teachers and a couple of students, and then to take that across into the school that way, and then come back for support and mentorship through the process, rather than me going in there doing my thing and then they just go on doing their thing. If they can take full ownership of their well-being and learning a different way, that, like, I know it works, but for them to have faith in that, their students are going to get the best support.
Yeah.
And their school community, that it ripples out. So yeah, it's quite a big thing.
You could actually bring that to the lab, and if you were to actually write that out, what I could do with you, what we're thinking at the moment is people bring stuff like that, and then we sit down in a bit of discussion group with them and actually break it down into basically the questions in which we can spit into the lab. And though that will then give you a ripple kit, which you then go back into, and be able to do that. So yeah, that's certainly something in which we can put into the lab and do it.
And the other area is prisons. Prisons and schools seems to be the areas that I'm working in at the moment.
Pretty similar.
Yeah. You've also with prisons, and Teresa will probably get. It's Rick, isn't it? Your husband? Yeah. Well, Rick was a corrective services officer.
He's actually come and sat in.
Sorry,
He's actually come and sat in.
Rick, you're not allowed to, mate. This is a closed forum. Secret squirrel stuff going on here.
He's giving you the bird.
I love it. On screen next time, please. So you've got a lot of different dynamics with that, which you're probably already aware of. And the other thing is with that is don't take the first no, because trust. You've just chosen two probably sectors which require so much trust.
That was confirmation.
Yeah. Which therefore go back to patience, perseverance, and performance.
Mm.
Got to have patience to build the trust. You've got to have perseverance, keeping going with it, and you've got to maintain the standards so that in time when they're ready, they will see. But the other thing is,
the standard's been really high each time. It's like they love it when we're there, and then they forget us when we're not there. So it's just getting that continuation going, and and it's a timing thing. And obviously, you've got to do the inner work so you're ready to, to be.
which also that can be a systems thing for you as well, which is having the systems in place for the longevity of stuff.
Yes.
When we ran a youth program, which was Queensland Rugby League's, they took it up as their youth leadership program because they had a lot of issues. One of the things that we were embedding was the systems for us to step away so that the QRL could actually take it on as their own organic program. It's how I've always worked. I don't want some long-term relationship with people. I want to empower them to actually get off their fucking ass and actually do the shit themselves. And that's why I've walked away from schools. I walked away from the QRL. They were two bloody admin nightmares, and they couldn't match us where we were wanting to go. So, but the thing is, if you don't have the systems in place to help you with that, it becomes very exhausting. So perseverance starts to wane, and then performance will follow. Something we can put in the lab. I'm gonna leave this with you. What we would really appreciate, don't chop me off if you want to ask another question. But what we'd really appreciate is like that answering that question, how we can get you to a point where you want people to come into this, because it's giving you something really awesome. And if your feedback is it's not, and I don't believe it will, and that's actually the majority of feedback, I'm actually really willing to hear that, which means this actually has to die and the next iteration has to be actually born. But we don't want to like keep going on and on and on, trying to make something work, like milk a stone. It doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So we need the feedback from you. And the other thing is, there's a number of you on the screen that I know, because what I used to do is go and do 4-day community building workshops in the community. And so what I would be looking at doing is taking that type of material, which would then have more follow-up time. What I really saw was there wasn't enough follow-up time with people, just because of the way the organization was structured that I was working with. But when I've ever done it from Emergent Leaders Foundation point of view, we always have an extensive follow-up period which assists people actually integrate it, which is what the lab is meant to do. It's meant to be a resource there for everyone. Duncan, do you want to add anything to that point discussion?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things just quickly come to mind. I mean, one of the things I've always sat with was mastering the art of being a jack of all trades. And it's the mastering the art is actually the knowing of yourself. And so the ability to adapt into different, to your point, Teresa, different languages, and Leah beautifully articulated adaptation. You're actually mastering the art. And how to master the art is actually the grounding within yourself. And then you can actually speak to different members of a community, and you can actually interact with different people. And so it's a real skill set. And further on from what James was actually saying, and Teresa, we've gone through a course together with a different organisation, and and I think one of the big things that I find is it keeps you looping in an environment, and to really walk away from it with a level of stability in who you are is what I've experienced going through, you know, this process. So it's an evolutionary process, is what James is saying. So, you know, really sit with it and go, what do I need? What do I need? You know, this is a time to really dive into the self. What do I need? That's what we're asking you guys. Okay, because it's not just a matter of just having people just turn up here with some wonderful ideas and stuff like that. No, we're wanting people to really be the best version of themselves. That's our passion.
Epic. Who has got a bit out of tonight? Please only put your hand up if you have.
Yep.
Awesome. Who would be back for the next one? Well, that gives us a bit of an indication. I will put the recording out in the next couple of days. Joni, are you asking a question or are you just saying hi to me? You're just agreeing with me. So I'll put this out in the next couple of days to you and to the whole group, and I'll probably do a little video up as well where I ask these questions as a group, so that people get a bit of understanding. What we're suggesting is a very novel. And to go to your point, Noel, like, will this work? It'll work. Well, it's actually going to work, and it is actually working now. The thing is, patience, perseverance, and performance are three things that I personally am asking myself constantly about this. So everything that we talk about or we teach or we help people through, we're actually doing on a moment by moment, day by day basis. So we're working with this to actually get it to the place where we want to get it. So I'll put it out to the group again. We're very willing to do something in which you can bring people to that you need to have on your team, and like that's when we can, because we're fairly skilled at taking people through the cleansing process for their evolution, and then putting people on the same platform that can actually, and same platform, same page, that can actually work together. But then, you know, within that 6 weeks post, coming together regularly as groups as well. And we're actually going to put it to New Zealand as well, although we haven't had any Aotearoa people here tonight, which is hilarious because we pulled it forward. But I'm going to put it out to them as well, because there's a big movement over there currently that are looking for support. And if we get more and more people coming from different backgrounds, it actually means that what we produce will be so much richer from a different angle.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Love you long time. Thank you so much for all your input today. Take away what you've got from whatever it is. Feel free just to spread it wide. Try it. The only reason why I'm fairly good at what I do is because I went to a whole heap of stuff and I went, you know what? I reckon I can do this. And I figured out I could. And I kept doing it. So love you on the other side. If you've got any questions, throw them at me, but we'll give you more information about that when the next one will be.
Thank you.
Just really
Thanks,
quickly,
James.
is 2 weeks good, or should we be less than 2 weeks? Should we be more than 2 weeks? I was meant to ask that question.
2 weeks is good.
Yep.
2 weeks.
Cool.
Epic.
Yep.
Love you.
weeks.
Thank you. See you. Good night.